guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we will take a look at some new revenge content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, "You don't like the sight of my trash bins in front of my house?" Okay, sure. Just happened, so I don't know what's going to happen after this, but hope it's worth the read for you. We just recently bought a house and moved in. I'm talking less than 2 months since we signed the papers. A couple days ago, we got a letter in the mail, no return address. The gist of the letter was just a piece of paper stating what we can't do with our house. No building non-permanent buildings, no trailers or RVs to be parked on the roadway, etc. Highlighted on the paper was a line stating, all trash must be put in metal or plastic bins, and must be put in the garage or behind the fence. I was worried and honestly a bit confused. We have no HOA, Homeowners Association for those who don't know. So I was wondering why we were receiving this letter when there shouldn't really be anyone enforcing it or fining us. It honestly didn't make any sense, so I decided to text my next door neighbor to see what they made of it. Long story short, they explained that the neighbor across the street from us is a huge stickler for the rules and is probably the one who printed out that paper, highlighted the section, and sent it to us without the return address so that we wouldn't know who it was. There are a few houses on our street that have their bins outside their house, so it's pretty obvious the person who sent us the letter just doesn't like looking at it through their front window. Cue malicious compliance. We have a home gym in our garage and didn't want to put it inside because of the space, but decided to move things around just for this compliance. So I agreed that the best way to comply is to push the bins in 4 feet so that it's in the garage. However, we're going to leave the garage door open all day every day we're home so that they still have to look at it. Can't say much now, can they? Next one is titled, "Store would not accept returned cloths, so I shredded them." Edit for clarity. I'm an avid hiker. While visiting a town, I bought some new boots from the only store in town that sells hiking boots. Being late in the afternoon, I didn't try them on first, just grabbed my size. It was near closing time and didn't want to keep the staff waiting for me to linger around buying stuff when they wanted to close and go home. When I got to the trailhead, I discovered the boots were way too small, so I put them back in my car and did my hike with my old boots. I had bought this brand previously and picked the size I bought last time. Since originally buying that brand, it appears they switched manufacturing in the US to China and had completely resized their range. The next day I took them back, but the store owner refused to swap them for a larger size, saying I'd worn them. I explained that this was impossible as my foot is literally an inch longer than the shoe. I'm 99% sure his attitude was based on my age and race. Not interested in fighting about it, I gave up and told him to throw the shoes in the rubbish as they are no use to me. As I turned around, I saw him move some stock on the shell aside, then get out a price gun to put a tag on them. I said to stop. I took out my very sharp pocket knife and cut the tongues out and slashed up the leather. Told him, we wouldn't want you to accidentally sell second-hand, used shoes by mistake, now would we? The guy was furious about it, but he can suck it as far as I care. I usually would have donated them to the homeless, and my actions were not only petty and spiteful but restrained. Unrestrained me would have loved to take him outside and use the boots to give him an attitude adjustment, but I decided that making it impossible for him to rip off someone else too was enough. Next one is titled, "Don't Mess with the Maid Service." So my roommate works for a maid service in a city. She's been there less than a month and has already come home with horror stories of entitled people and ridiculous inspections and the sort. I suppose having a clientele that hires maids, you're bound to run into more than your average amount of entitlement. This particular maid service has a somewhat faulty way of grading their maids. They work with a star rating, 1 to 5, and often the clients will grade poorly for silly things such as services undone that were made clear the maid service does not provide. Meaning one bad review can really mess up one's grade. So a week ago my roommate came home upset because she had gotten a 1-star review on a home she had cleaned. She is very thorough and takes a lot of pride in her work, so this was upsetting to her. The client, let's call her Karen, wrote a long-winded review with her main complaint being that, all the furniture and chairs were in the same place as when she left, so it was apparent that the maid did not clean her home. Because apparently putting a chair back in place at the table, desk was not possible. This was a weekly clean job, rather than a come in and fix this mess job. So there was usually not a drastic difference before and after, as it's basically maintaining the state of the home. So Karen assumed that due to the furniture being back in place, nothing had been done. My roommate was so upset that her overall grade went down due to this, even though she cleaned Karen's house to the best of her ability as she always does. With some time and some cheering up, I was able to bring her spirits back up after the blow. Well, fast forward a week, and guess whose house shows up on my roommate's itinerary? Karen. She expressed concern about having to go back to that giant house and get a low score again, but away she trudged to work that day. She gets home that evening with the biggest smile on her face, and I asked how it went. Apparently, while cleaning Karen's home, she had taken every item in this woman's home and angled it ever so slightly to the left. Tables, chairs, countertop appliances, the works. I asked if she was worried about the review. She said she knew she would get a low rating anyway, so she might as well make sure Karen's house looked noticeably clean. Now we wait in anticipation for the review. Update. We just got the review. Karen, notorious for her petty, long-winded reviews with this company, just left a 3-star review with absolutely no comment. We did it, boys. We shut up a Karen. What a monumental moment in history. Next one is titled, Restaurant owner who doesn't pay bills and breaks regulations, laws gets his life ruined. That happened about 2 years ago. Background. I am a quite young guy, now 23, and started a small company with a few friends, about the same age. We had some common interests in IT-related work, so we decided to make it official, but for us it is more a hobby than a job. We just generate enough revenue to be at the $0 mark end of year, working weekends, evenings mostly, as we all are employed in our main jobs and earn quite well despite our age, no conflict of interest. I have a neighbor. I am living with my parents in a small village in the countryside that manages a small non-profit youth club out of his own pocket, mainly for school children to hang out on Fridays evening with their colleagues and enjoying some music and party. A room probably around 100 square meter in the school building, fitted with a small bar, lights, DJ equipment, 2 kilowatts PA system, etc. I was helping him out to manage this youth club when I was at school, and from then on we would rent out the equipment and offer DJing services for birthday parties, weddings, school, concerts, etc. for quite cheap prices. Main story. Through some colleagues of my neighbor we got offered a gig to rent out equipment and offer DJing services in a restaurant. We met with the restaurant owner, let's call him RO, and got some backstory about the restaurant and RO. The location of the restaurant struggled hard the last few years, as it is quite remote in the countryside. RO doesn't have much experience in running such a restaurant, nor anything to do with running a business. He was before a normal office worker, don't quite remember what exactly though, and at some point thought he can earn money with this restaurant. He rented it for quite a high price, was serving mainly food and some basic drinks. He started with that about 3 months prior. The interior of the restaurant was quite old and not a lot effort put in to make it attractive for anyone wanting to come there. Kitchen wasn't quite up to standards, they are quite high in the country I live. Food was basically frozen and just heated up on demand. The chef in the kitchen wasn't a real chef, and RO was losing quite some money from running this restaurant. RO planned to organize musical events every weekends to get more customers into the restaurant. Some weekends RO had some small one-man bands organized. Another we were planned for DJing, etc. I and my neighbor decided to give it a try for some time and set our price. It was quite low, probably about $150 per weekend with 2 people working 6 hours 2 evenings. No big problem about the price, as it is also more of a hobby and not income. After a few weeks of doing this, probably about 10 people, max probably 20, were their average a day on weekends. That's not a lot. The restaurant had space for 100 seats, and definitely didn't cover costs. RO approached me after some time to ask if I, actually my own company, would be interested in creating a website for said restaurant and run some advertisement on Facebook and Instagram. I agreed, why not, we haven't done such a thing so far, and we are willing to learn what we need to do, of course letting him sign a small contract. In about 2 hours I had set up a small WordPress site with the menu, some pictures, etc. and hosted the site for him. For the advertisement I required prepayment of the amount RO wanted to invest into it, just for safety. Total of this job was probably around $500, $100 for ads already paid, but then when we sent him an invoice he mentioned that he had difficulties with paying it. I agreed a payment of $200 and the rest can be paid over time by the RO. At some point we heard that RO actually lent out $50,000 from the chef he hired. He didn't get paid for working there, to help paying the bills. Even the one waitress working there hasn't been paid since she started working there. Also, the payments for our gigs were getting delayed for some time by RO. A bit concerned about this, I and my neighbor continued with the gigs, knowingly that we probably won't get paid. One evening RO approached me again to ask if I, in the name of my own company, can help out some technical stuff at his home. Sure, I did, prepay, $40 per hour, still very cheap, for setting up some email, fixing some printer issue, etc. at his flat. When I saw Ro's desk I was blown away from what I saw there all around. Hundreds of unpaid invoices, bills, reminders, including third reminder to pay some bills, etc. that weren't small things, for X. Reminders for rent of restaurant and his own flat, internet, mobile phone, even federal reminders. I finished the job, went to my neighbor to tell him what I have seen in Ro's flat. After that, my neighbor and I decided to decline any further gigs that were planned, and I, in the name of my own company, declined any further work RO requests and sent some reminders for our still open invoice, $200. We didn't get any money from RO after that, but wasn't hurting too much as it was just some free time I spent to create the website. After some time I took the website and email server offline for the restaurant. And then comes the real revenge. I and my neighbor did some further investigation on RO and found quite some interesting things. RO had tried to run 2 restaurants before, but failed miserably and had to file for bankruptcy. RO hadn't registered the current restaurant as business. RO doesn't have a license to sell alcohol in the restaurant, and some other details. We also had some talks with the chef of his restaurant that lent RO those $50,000, and we advised him to ask for his money back from RO, and take legal advice, go to court for claiming his money because otherwise it may be gone completely, if not already. With those evidences, we started to write some anonymous reports to federal administrations, tax office, trade office, health department, employment exchange, etc. And then we waited. A few days later it started. Different departments were inspecting and searching his restaurant, and of course had to close it, searched his flat for files about the illegal business, questioned the chef and the waitress, and finally RO got arrested. I couldn't really follow up what actually happened after that with RO, because of the anonymous tips, and I was away from real life for a year, military service. I only know that his wife left him, some money was paid back to the chef and the waitress from his retirement funds, and I think RO ended up in jail for some years, but not sure how long. I, from the side of my own company, didn't bother to try getting our money RO owed us, as it simply wasn't a big deal and amount for us, as well as I and my neighbor didn't really bother either for getting some money. Seeing him go down and have his life ruined was more than enough for us as a payment. Next one is titled, A Simple Way I Get Petty Revenge on a Whole Customers. There is literally no way for me to get in trouble. This is super small and they probably don't even notice, but it's enough to put a smile on my smug face. I work at a grocery store as a cashier, and naturally come in contact with plenty of interesting people. So because I'm a petty witch and feel the need to take some sort of revenge, I came up with this. This is something you could probably do too, and I promise it's literally impossible to get in trouble. So basically, if a customer is being a real pain in the butt and they happen to pay in cash, I'll go out of my way to give them dirty change. Not just dirty, but the crustiest, most chipped and ugly coins I can possibly find. And I hand them this disgusting mess of coins and bills that look like they passed through an animal. They don't particularly notice, because it's just how money is. And sure, maybe they did notice, but what are they supposed to complain about? I gave them their money. Excuse me. She gave me dirty money, money's dirty, what did you expect? It's enough that I can have a small feeling of justice and small enough that I can get away with it for the rest of my life. So next time a customer is an a-hole to you, give them the most disgusting and vile change you can find. Last one is titled, Getting Back at a Karen. I don't know if this is much of revenge, but she was definitely super embarrassed. Got approached by someone in a small store today. I was shopping without a mask on, because I have a medical condition that causes me to essentially have really bad asthma attacks with one on. I try to wear one, but some days I honestly just can't. I've been exempted. I am fully vaccinated and get tested regularly. But anyway, this lady comes up to me and tells me I need to put one on. I politely explained to her the situation, Then she claims to work at the store and tells me I need to leave. She obviously doesn't, she isn't wearing a uniform, name tag, anything. And if she worked there I'm sure she would have been trained to allow a costumer with a doctor's note to shop. I flat out told her, no you don't, and asked for a name tag or something as proof, which she responds to by just storming away. Only a couple minutes later she randomly comes back to me and tells me to get out of the store. She literally starts following me, less than a foot behind me, and says she won't leave until I'm out of the building. She even went as far to say, I'm the owner of this ducking store. Totally professional language that an owner would use, right? I looked at everything I wanted to and eventually just decided to leave because the prices were too high anyway and she was annoying me. But on the way out I went up to a counter and asked an employee if she actually worked there and was the owner. The employee said no, she doesn't, then proceeded to tell her to leave. She got super flustered and embarrassed and said she needed to shop. But the employee made her get out of the store and basically kicked her out like she was trying to do to me. I just smiled at her and waved as she walked off. She was so upset. Thanks for listening.